The manhwa starts with a news broadcast saying that there are additional victims in the Daejeon serial killer case, and as the perpetrator hasn't been found, even after more than 20 murders, citizens are hella worried. Excluding the fact that the crimes have all been committed in the same metropolitan area, no clear connections between the victims, including age or gender, have been revealed yet. They suspect they may be indiscriminate crimes, not targeting any specific individuals. At the same time, the police have revealed that they are putting their focus on the possibility of this being the work of a copycat. We hear a woman saying that her sister was murdered. It jumps to the metropolitan area, specifically the WBC, and we are introduced to a woman named Lee Se-la. We see her working away at her desk, typing up the story about a family of 4 found dead, saying that it was a robbery murder. She sighs out of relief and puts her hand on her head, starting to feel her world spinning around. Someone calls out to her. We are introduced to a man named Yun Johan. He asks if her headaches are back and thinks she should move to a quieter place. As we see, they are now all having dinner together. She apologizes, saying that it's okay, and she just spaced out. Johan says that she said that last time and ended up throwing up. Another man at the table says that it makes sense that she would, because it's only been a few weeks, and they look down at an empty spot on the table. Se-la looks down with eyes full of sadness at the empty seat, recalling her sister drinking with them and how much fun she was having. She also recalls her face at the morgue when she had to identify the body. We see her crying. She says that her sister's face, which she often complained about, saying it was too yellow, was paler than it ever was. A number carved on the back of her hand peeked through the cover. It's evidence that the most talked about serial killer in the world, called Number, committed this crime. Johan asks how many people it has been, saying that he thinks it's around 30. The other guy at the table says that apparently, it's crossed 40, and they should include the copycats too, but they don't. The other lady at the table says that she feels like the world is going crazy with all of these murders, and the police don't seem like they're doing anything. The man sighs, saying that all those bastards should be executed or something. Se-la asks if there's a point to that, because even if they do that, her sister will still be dead. And every time she leaves her house, there's either a murder or a robbery. This doesn't seem like the proper solution to rely on the police, and they need a more fundamental one to deal with it, like sorting out dangerous elements or future criminals ahead of time or something. Se-la suggests that they find them all beforehand and kill them. Johan is surprised, but Se-la continues, saying that lately, that's all that's been on her mind. That night, as they're leaving the restaurant, Johan calls out to her, telling her to get home safely, and that Duncheon street side is brighter and has more cameras. She seems indifferent about his advice, and he starts to awkwardly try to muster up the courage to say that she should try seeing someone nice, because the people who could help her could be unexpectedly close by. She laughs, saying that she will, and he also smiles out of relief, waving her off. We see somebody watching from up top, and they have a blue aura in their eyes. Back at work, Se-la is going through the CCTV, as the news explains that there is nothing in common between the victims. The only things connecting the cases are the wounds in the shape of a number carved somewhere on their bodies. What the numbers mean, or whether it's a single perpetrator, is not certain. This is all from a guy named Kim Deok-gi, a profiler. Se-la is going through more of the crime reports, saying that random killings are happening on an unprecedented scale. But it's not that there are no witnesses. Very rarely, even after facing Number, there are people who survived. One of the survivor testimonies, from a lady named Lee Jae-yun, says that it was all just a coincidence. They just happened to eat out together that day and then went to a hidden gem. Just going to a place they normally didn't was all it took, as we see her sitting there, terrified for her life. We see the same outfit as the man who was staring at Se-la earlier from the rooftop, as he must be Number. Another survivor testimony, this time from a man named Choi Chong-won, says that they need to really hear him out. The road wasn't a road people didn't use, but as soon as he noticed there wasn't anyone, and that the only thing behind them was a man, he felt something instinctually, but he doesn't know how to describe it. It was as if he already knew that things would end up the way they did. Se-la wonders what he's talking about, wondering what the reason could be that only these people survived, and why Number let them go, even while knowing the risk that leaving them alive would create. Jae-yun says that she heard a voice and thought that she was going to die, but instead, Number leaned in close, only saying the words "Number 1, not you," before leaving. Later that day, Se-la sighs out of relief while laying on her couch, saying that due to investigative reasons, the police haven't revealed the numbers on the victims. She says that she's lacking too much information. From the get-go, She doesn't even know if this is possible in Korea, asking how they can continue to murder without even hiding their bodies and leaving witnesses. The next day, she's back at work, saying that her tip mailbox is full, and we see her surprised at one of them. As she's reading it, she asks if this is real, and then starts calling the number for follow-up. Sometime later that night, on the street, she says this is it, and it's better than she expected. She thinks she can more or less tell that she'll have to look for more material. As she's walking down the street, she starts to hear the sound of somebody mimicking her footsteps, each and every step overlapping until she comes to a stop, and so do the footsteps behind her. A chill runs down her spine as a man is standing directly behind her. She starts to feel really worried, recalling Chongwon's words about the empty road. She says it must be a coincidence that a man is just walking behind her. She can hear that he's still not moving, and as she starts walking, he does too. She realizes now that her fear was right, as she is now running while the assailant chases her. She screams as they push onto her shoulder. She starts to lose balance and falls over onto the ground. The man then stretches his hand out towards her face. Johan comes in, charging at the man, and she's surprised to see him. He then grabs onto her hand, asking what she's doing, saying that they need to run. As they're running away, she asks what he's doing here, and he says that it's near his work. But he asks who the hell that crazy guy is, and if that's number or not. He says for now, they need to go to a place with a lot of people, and if they go to the restaurant area, they won't be chased anymore. He spots an alley saying that it leads to the main street. As she turns the alley, she's surprised to see that it's a complete dead end, wondering what's going on. As the main street is nowhere in sight, she turns to tell Johan, only to see him raising a bat into the air. He then swings it, hitting her straight in the face, as we see her earrings go flying off her head. She then hazily opens her eyes as the man from earlier now catches up with them. We see she's starting to lose consciousness, and the guy asks Johan why he was running so fast like that. Johan says that he still brought her over properly, and be it the street vibes or cameras, there's no better place than this. Anyone see this coming? Se La asks Johan why. The other guy says that both of these sisters are quick on reading the room, and he thought he was going to lose it again, and be screwed. Se La's surprised and says there's no way and that her sister died to number. Johan smirks saying yeah and laughing at her saying surely she knows how grateful he is, and if he writes down just the number like this they'll all misunderstand, and think that number did it. As he starts carving it out onto her hand. He says that, thanks to that, farm teams like his get a bit more breathing room. Johan says he's done. And then tells the dude that he can do whatever he wants right now, but to remember that the moment she stops breathing she is his. What a freak, Se La looks up with fear and anger in her eyes. The dude says that he wants to see how she looks on the inside. Only for someone else to enter the alley. And he stands there saying absolutely nothing. Johan and the other dude turn to look at him. Johan asks if he's enjoying the show, telling him to get lost. We see his eyes with a blue aura and that the man has a scar on his face, as what he sees above these guys' heads is a 4 above Johan and a 1 above the other dude. He says he found both a 4 and a 1 and that they are destined murderers. It jumps up 3 hours earlier. We see whoever messaged Se La about the tip report saying that she's very thankful to number. Se La asks why. The woman continues, saying that he saved her life as well as her family's. Se La realizes she is one of the more recent case survivors, named Yang Su Yong. Se La says that the victim she witnessed during the incident was definitely her ex-lover, asking if she's right. Su Yong laughs at the word ex-lover, saying that she is quite generous with her words, despite the shit show that bastard made in front of her house. Se La says that the victim was killed by number, and she was next to them when it happened, as we see him standing there watching her be abused. Se La says she could have been in extreme danger, asking why she thinks number saved her life. Su Yong laughs, saying she's asking this when she could have seriously died too, asking if she's wrong. Of course, Se La was a bit conflicted, because it's not like she's wrong, but now she understands the truth. She's looking up at him from the ground. She understands who he saves and who he kills. As number says he found the destined murderers, he starts to walk forward, which startles them. The other dude grabs onto a pole, and Johan tells him to wait, but of course, the guy doesn't. He asks if he can't hear him, or if he's deaf. Number quickly strikes towards the dude's hand, hitting it, knocking the pole out of it, and follows it up with a quick shot to the dude's stomach, sending him flying up into the air, spitting out blood. Johan and Se La are surprised, as the dude is now fallen onto the floor, screaming in pain. Number looks at the dude, saying it's not him, because he only has the number 1. Se-la recalls Jae-yun's words. Of course, Number sees a 4 right above Johan's head and pulls out his karambit, pointing at him, saying that he is the target for elimination. Se-la starts to panic, wondering if he is Number or not, and says no way, as Number starts to run directly at him. Johan realizes this is bad, so he tightens the grip on his knife, but of course, Number is ready, and he's looking above his head as the numbers start shifting all around. Johan rapidly thrusts towards his head, but Number dodges and closes the gap, grabbing onto his hand, then flips his karambit around, stabbing him in the stomach multiple times, giving him the prison treatment. Johan screams in pain as the Number continues shifting as he is becoming indecisive. Number then raises his foot into the air and does a spinning back kick, hitting the other dude in the chest as he comes in for a surprise attack. Se-la still just lays there watching all of this, recalling how he said he found a 4 and a 1, and that they are destined murderers. She starts putting the pieces together, saying that it was always a mystery, as the victims had no commonalities between one another. His skill at evading the investigative net for an unnaturally long time, and the reoccurring behavior in the survivor testimonies of acting like he could foresee what would happen. Back to Soo-young's testimony, she says, when Number left and the police arrived, they found something in that bastard's bag. It was gasoline, butane, and a burner. He had every intention of starting a massive fire, asking if she understands what he's saying. During that early dawn, if she hadn't crossed paths with Number in front of her house, and if he had not stabbed that bastard and killed him, her entire family would have burned to death instead. As Number stands there looking down at Johan, who looks up worried while bleeding out, Number kicks him in the face and slams his head straight down into the concrete. His eyes look full of disgust as he continues stomping the absolute life out of him, telling him to bite the curb. Se-la says she knows it sounds absurd, but once the outrageous thought crossed her mind, she couldn't shake it off, and she wonders if it's possible that Number can see it. If he can see the future, that must be why he calls out the number and kills those with more than one. As he stares down at Johan, Number pulls out a tape recorder and clicks it, saying that the year is 2026, and it's November 14th. The number is 4, and his name is Yun Johan. By killing him, he can save the 4 people he was going to kill. He puts the karambit up to his throat, asking if he has any words or final wishes. Johan goes to curse him, and Number continues, asking if he has any small hopes or unfinished business. Even a message he'd like to leave for someone before dying is fine, still granted if possible. Johan spits up blood, asking what he's saying, and laughs, asking who the hell would willingly let themselves be killed. As he sits there staring at Johan, Number only asks if those were his last words or not, with just cold dead lifeless eyes. Johan's thoughts start to fill with fear as the karambit gets closer to his throat. He yells to wait, but it's too late. Number shoves it into his throat. Johan starts spitting up even more blood, begging that he be spared, and reaches toward his face, saying just this once. But Number says he doesn't think that's possible and finishes cutting his throat right there. Johan has now bled out on the street. The other dude is crawling away, and Number looks down at Johan's hand and starts carving the number 4 into it. Se-la asks if he's not going to chase the other person, and he says number 1s aren't targets for elimination. Killing one person in order to save another doesn't equate to anything. She says even if it's just 1, it's still ±0, asking if she is wrong. Number sits there for a moment, and she says it's a type of logic that's hard to accept under normal circumstances, but she thinks she understands that this person has his own rules. She stands up, saying that she would like to help too with the things he has been doing, and she's always had the same thought cross her mind. If she could just find the murderers of the future in advance, and if she could identify the evil ones and judge them according to a rule, then she never would have had to lose her sister. She says that she's a reporter, and she can hide him in the shadows, and if he wants his voice to be heard, she can make it loud and widespread. Surely he knows that she can help him. Number doesn't say anything for a second, then asks if she's really had the same thoughts. He pulls his mask down, saying that it'll be faster to say with words. He pulls out the tape recorder and points it at her, asking if she has any last wishes or final words. She's surprised, asking what he means, because what he sees above her head is a 12, and she is dead serious. Number explains that every human's life is equal in this chaotic world. This one truth is what keeps him going. He doesn't know who the good or bad people are, or which person should live and who should die. He doesn't know which would help the world more. If he doesn't know anything anyway, then to just erase the numbers in front of him, he actually killed Se-la and left the 12 on her hand. He says just to save as many lives as possible, to save the people that can be saved, he kills others. Korean Dexter Morgan. On the news, they are talking about another one of Number's cases and how he has continued to inspire copycat crimes. On the night of the 14th, police received a report that a woman and a man were killed by Number and dispatched. But it turns out there was a conspiracy to commit murder, involving Mr. A, who reported the case, and one of the victims, Mr. B, were revealed. It was announced that it is highly likely that Mr. A was the copycat. A lady at a restaurant is told that she needs to come grab an order, and she runs over. The news continues talking about the murder, as we see Number actually sitting there at the coffee shop, working on something while drinking his coffee. The news continues talking about the random killings, while Number, staring down at his notebook, is sketching out some people, one with a 2 and one with a 4. He says, 2.5 cups of shots, and the drizzles of caramel. Paired with the most simple menu item. A chicken tender sandwich, mixed with cranberries as a side, an egg, and one piece of waffle. It is real. All of them can be eaten at the right time if ordered when the coffee is about halfway gone. For seats, he likes the second seat on the window side, and the customers inside the restaurant, the workers, the people going in and out of the entrance, as well as all the people going through a major crosswalk. He picked this intersection so he can specifically look down at everyone and see as many faces as possible, because of one reason, and that is so he can see who is a destined murderer and take them out. From where he is standing, he has a really good vantage point, and he can see everybody's numbers pretty clearly. He spots a woman with a 2, and a choker on. Which is the woman he drew earlier. He stays here watching the regulars and spots another man who has a 4 above his head. He says that the number 2 and 4 are the only last 2 targets left inside of this area. But then he spots something, saying that the target choice priority order is simple. The bigger the number, and the number that flickers the most, as a flicker indicates that it is likely to continue changing. The waitress comes by, saying that his food is here, but then she is surprised to actually notice that he is not there at all, and he left his money right there without even finishing his drink. We see some people cheering one another as they are all celebrating something, and they belong to a gang. Everybody else at the restaurant feels uncomfortable, and they continue just chanting over and over. The waiter comes over, saying it is unpleasant for the other customers, asking if they can quiet down. The gang members get violent, throwing a bottle at a wall. We see the man from earlier asking what he just said, and why they would care about the other customers. As they run off, the waiter realizes he needs to be careful with what he says. One of the dudes in the back tells his boss to get them more beer, and number 5 gets called out too by one of his underlings, congratulating him on getting probation. He says the lawyers really were worth their cost, and he heard the punishment for being under the influence is pretty tough nowadays. So if he used someone else, he would have definitely been screwed. They ask how he settled it with the high school girl's dad, and he says it was really tough. Even after he told him he would give him as much money as he wanted, he just kept spewing bullshit. He admits he was in the wrong for drinking and driving, but asks what they wanted him to do after it happened. Asking if he should really try to regrow the girl's legs or something, because that's just not a possibility. And that she should just think she's a cripple, and that's her luck, and he wonders why he continuously is getting nagged when it's already happened. The dude finally settled after they scared him a bit. The dude drinks even more bottles of soju, and later that night, he's getting into his car as everybody tells him to get home safely. They start laughing at the fact that he's about to go drinking and driving, and that the cops are going to take him in. They make sure to tell him not to get caught, some typical gangster banter and dramas, and he starts driving away on the road. We see that his eyes are clearly unfocused, as he is barely pushing the brake, swerving straight towards a bunch of bystanders on the sidewalk. As he's starting to fall asleep, we hear Number tell him to turn it. As he puts the karambit up to his throat, he tells him to turn the wheel. The guy immediately swerves, narrowly avoiding killing all these people on the sidewalk, and he sits there, dropping a log in his pants. Number tells him to continue driving forward and turn right at the second intersection and go to the outskirts road. The dude's number continues to flicker, and Number says that flickering is a sign that the number is going to change. In his case, it's a sign that it's going to reduce. 5 has no idea what he's talking about, and Number says that it usually happens within 24 hours, or as soon as 10, and that he will kill someone. He tells him to stop the car and move to the passenger seat, asking if he has any last words or wishes, as he'll listen to them until he counts down from 3. His foot still on the brake, he realizes what he must do, as he quickly reaches his hand up. Blood flies, and we see him grabbing onto the blade, which surprises Number, as the guy starts slamming on the gas, swerving left and right. Number then grabs onto the dude's head and slams it into the window over and over until it cracks. Then, He pulls his karambit away, cutting the dude's hands, and starts stabbing him in the chest over and over. Bro really loves the prison treatment. Number then slams his foot on the brake, and we see the car eventually come to a stop. The gas is still being pressed. It continues for a second and then drives off normally, as we see Number is now in the driver's seat, and 5 is bleeding out. Number says it is November 15, 2026, and the flickering disappears, but the number is still 5. 5 asks him who sent him, and Number says that he thought even if he stops the murder that will happen, it's only that the moment gets pushed backwards, and it doesn't seem like the number that's been set changes. 5 then pulls out a knife, yelling, telling him to die, as Number quickly hits him with a clean hit to the throat. 5's eyes roll to the back of his head, and he falls over, dead in the seat. Number continues talking to the recorder, saying as expected, this time as well, the number has now completely vanished. Sometime later, the next day, Number is back at the same restaurant, and he just finished paying for something, and heads down the stairs to go sit in his seat, and he says that he's already come this far, and it's time to make a decision soon. He sees the waitress struggling with a box, and she apologizes, saying that she has to come through. He recalls that she had a number 1 last time, but above her head, the number is flickering like crazy and has a golden aura to it. As she starts to lose her footing, she falls over, and Number stares down at her, low-key looking confused. Because what he sees above her head is none other than 26, and it's continuously flickering, and Number is surprised. She closes her eyes out of fear of falling, but realizes that she isn't, and when she opens them, she sees Number holding onto her arm, which surprises her. She starts to panic, thanking him and apologizing, asking if he's okay. He just stands there blankly, still trying to process the situation, while another lady comes down the stairs. The waitress starts crying, apologizing. The lady, a little annoyed, tells her that she should have been more careful, asking Number if he's hurt anywhere, but he's still just staring down at her. He starts remembering her features, saying that her hair is beige colored, it's curly, she has old navy sneakers, and her height is around 160 centimeters. He's not remembering it wrong, and he's sure she's the employee whose number was 1 back then, asking how it increased. Numbers don't really change once they've been set. They can flicker, but they don't generally change. The waitress apologizes, saying that he must have been surprised. Ji Hyun says she's got a bad headache all of a sudden. The other girl says they're going to clean it up, telling her to go on ahead and rest, and we learn that her name is Mo Ji Hyun. Number adds her to his book, drawing her out, and wonders what exactly it could mean. We see Ji Hyun and the girl from earlier as she's putting eye drops in her eyes. Ji Hyun is obviously hating it and closes her eyes out of fear. Her coworker tells her it's better if she calms down, but Ji Hyun says she's okay. She continues to talk, but her coworker takes the chance to surprise her by putting the eye drops in. Ji Hyun rubs her eyes, wondering why they keep stinging so much recently, and her coworker says that she's either sleeping too late or her eyes are getting dry. Ji Hyun says she doesn't know, and it's never happened until now. Her coworker asks if she wants to borrow her eye drops, telling her that she can use them because she'll get some more from the doctor. Ji Hyun thanks her. The news is still talking about Number and how Mr. A and Mr. B tried to make it look like Number was the one who committed the crime. Ji Hyun and her coworker wonder if maybe it's a rerun. We hear Deok Gi's voice saying that this is the first time they've had random killings on this scale in their country since the Mo Han Chul case in 2012. Ji Hyun looks as if she's about to have a PTSD attack, and her coworker says that she can't go anywhere and that it's scary. As the news continues, Ji Hyun stands up, saying it's time and that she's going to go get some breakfast first. They wave her off, and as she heads downstairs, her and the other coworker wonder if she's going to a different part-time job. They say it's pretty sad, as she should be at the age where she should be having fun at school. And while she smiles a lot on the outside, she never speaks about herself. We see her vision is blurry as she's having a panic attack, so she starts telling herself to calm down and breathe. She manages to calm herself down and exhales deeply. She says that surprised her and it still happens sometimes, but she needs to hurry, or else she'll be late. We see her getting slapped in the face, and the man tells her that she shouldn't be late next time. Ji Hyun says stuff like this is fine, as physical things aren't serious at all, and she just has to endure the momentary pain. It's just a few slaps, and it's part of the boss's guts theory. If she can take this, then she can work well. She says that she can work longer than the hours allotted for her age, and she can get paid more as well. And it's a sweet workplace, so she has no reason to say no. Still, Sometimes when she can't find the energy, she has to give herself a little pat and remind herself to smile, even if it's forced, because if she continues doing that, she'll find herself already smiling naturally. One of the guys calls out to her, surprised, and calls out her full name, asking if it is her. She turns, worried. The dude recognizes her, asking what she's doing here and if she lives nearby. The other people at the table ask the guy who she is, and he says that they went to middle school together. He says surely they know her because they were in elementary school together. They say they have no idea, wondering who she's supposed to be. She starts to have another panic attack, as we see her desk has the word murderer on it, telling her to die, and the dude says that the Mohan Chul case they've been talking about is her father, and that he is actually a murderer. She starts to hold back her vomit, and they start to laugh, saying they didn't know Han Chul had a daughter. We see a golden light from her eyes as she starts to blank out the dude's face. He continues telling her it's nice to see her like this, and they were surprised that she disappeared so suddenly. We learn the guy's name is Minsu, and they laugh, asking what's up with his random hookups. He asks what they're talking about, saying that she's just a friend. As she's starting to see a timer above their heads, just like how number can see a number, she heads outside, vomiting at the sight. We see tears running down her face, and she's having a splitting headache. She wonders what the hell that was, as her eyes are showing her weird things. We start to zoom out further and further, as we see Number standing there on a rooftop, watching her. He starts describing her features again, such as what she's wearing and her hair, and he says as for the number, it wasn't that it was stationary at 26, but that it was continuously darting around all over the place, and he wonders just who the hell she is, as we see her still holding back vomit. It then gives us a flashback to some paparazzi asking Han Chul what the reason was that he committed his crimes, and if he doesn't feel sorry for his victims' families, and if he is really using his right to remain silent even after confessing. We see a young Ji Hyun and her mother watching this on the news, and she asks why her dad is on the TV. She was only 8 years old at the time. We then hear Ji Hyun's mother on the phone, asking her boss how he could say that all of a sudden. While Ji Hyun's reading a picture book, her mother asks what her husband has to do with this. It seems like he just doesn't want to pay her. This is just a year later, and until this time, Ji Hyun lived as if she was half asleep, or perhaps she just refused to face the fact right in front of her eyes. At 14 years old, we see her in school with all that stuff written on her desk, and there were people berating the principal, telling him to kick her out, asking how well he thinks a child who inherited a murderer's temper would grow up, and that she obviously learned nothing from her father in the first place. Another classmate walks out of the room pissed, and Ji Hyun calls out to her, only to get slapped in the face. Her friend's name was Hye Jin. We see some guy telling her that Hye Jin lost her older brother, and he was apparently in university 6 years ago. They had quite an age difference, but it seems like they were very close with one another. The man asks Ji Hyun if she really didn't know, but she says there's no way she would have, as her dad left the house when she was 6. Until he was arrested and showed up on TV, she never saw his face once, so she had no idea what he was doing or what he was up to. The man tells her to be careful, saying that to others, it might sound like she's just making excuses, telling her to think about how somebody like Hye Jin would feel. Ji Hyun starts to ask him what the hell he means by an excuse, asking if she's in the wrong here for just happening to be in the same class as Hye Jin, getting close to her, or for her dad being a serial killer. The man says it's not a problem of right or wrong. In front of someone who's grieving a lost family member, you can't ask them to understand their own grievances. I think this means that her father killed Hye Jin's brother, but the guy decides that she's right, and there's nothing he can really do. And in the end, it's just her luck. Ji Hyun says if she reads more books, maybe she could express what she's feeling right now. At that moment inside of her head, a single word kept circling round and round. That was her father's name, and it felt like such a big curse to her. Sometime later in the park, we see Ji Hyun sitting there watching people run around. Her eyes are still glowing. She can see timers on all of their heads, and then they go away, and she starts panting because her eyes are hurting. She says this is surely not a dream, wondering what the hell is going on. She thinks she more or less gets the trick, and it is to squint her eyes to focus until she sees the numbers, like she's doing one of those illusions if you squint. In the beginning, she thought that it was the time for something because of the colon there, but seeing the size of the numbers, that doesn't seem to be the case, and she doesn't know what the hell it means. She says surely it's not some rare disease. A guy approaches her and asks what disease she's talking about. She says he's finally here. We are introduced to Baek Min. He asks if something's wrong with her, and she says it's nothing, especially not something a child could understand. He tells her that she's only 1 month older, and he can't believe that she has such an attitude when she's the one who called him here. He throws a box to her, and she's surprised, asking if this is the new hand cream, wondering why he's giving this to her. He asks what she means by why, saying that it's her birthday tomorrow, and he thought she called him here for this. He says that he knows that she is nobody but her 10-year-long friend, and they should get some food and head to a PC cafe because it's been a while. He then looks to the side, wondering what is going on because she is crying. She starts to feel a little embarrassed and says that it's nothing really, and she thanks him for the gift while apologizing. She starts to recall everything she's been going through recently, saying that she's just dealing with a lot right now. A little later, she asks if he remembers Minsu, and he says that he remembers him being in class 5, and he can't believe she had to run into a guy like that. Ji Hyun says all this time, she thought she'd overcome as much as she could, but as soon as those old memories come back, she gets nauseous and throws up, and she couldn't do anything. Asking if he remembers all those older women talking, all those parents yapping to the principal trying to get her kicked out too, all because of her father, and how they think that she's just going to grow up to be poor, and they don't want to teach a future criminal in their school. Ji Hyun says she kept wanting to prove them wrong, saying that she won't become someone like that, and she'll live with a healthy mind and independently as a full-fledged adult. She won't become a murderer like her dad. Minute sighs, saying that her not being one is enough, wondering why she thinks she has to prove herself to them. She says that everything in the world is like that apparently, and since he's still a baby, he wouldn't understand it. They continue bantering, and he says that they're going to have to just go have a ton of fun, and get all of this emotional shit out of the way, and that will prove she is living the opposite of what they said she would. He also says there aren't any good movies, he suggests a board game cafe. She starts blushing, and he asks if she wants to go play PUBG. She says no because he's ass at the game. We see them playing while she's having fun. They even go to a karaoke bar. They continue their night on the town. She's really enjoying it, and she notices something right above his head. It says 302, and it starts ticking down. He notices her shocked expression, asking what's wrong, and she says it's nothing. He says that it's weird, wondering if he's in a bad mood because it feels like someone is following them. He starts looking around. We hear people talking, asking if they left, and that they need to be careful. Turns out they are being followed, and they have a camera watching them. We see some guy explaining how Han Chol's daughter has been having a lot of fun recently as he's looking at a picture of her. He says the video sent to them ends here, but according to the sender, she apparently went to a street full of clubs and bars. Since the video ends there, they don't know whether they actually went somewhere, like a hotel or not, but still, even if they did go, they can just think of it as high schoolers getting up to trouble. But here's another fun fact. This video was filmed on November 17th, meaning that was 2 days before the video was taken. It was the Memorial Day for the 13th victim of the Han Chol case, who was Miss S. Not to mention, she's now around the age when Miss S was killed, and that the world is so fair. For some, it's the day they send off their young children, but others are just living a happy life. Of course, it's not like they're wrong for it, and sure, it's not like she can't date anyone just because she's Han Chol's daughter, but the situation is funny as hell. And today's lesson is, God is dead. This is a YouTube video that got 1.4 million views in 5 hours. Bro is going crazy. Mr. Beast is about to get fired. There's a lot of comments yapping about how some people think that the guy should end it with her, and other people are saying that this is an infringement of her privacy, and she's just a girl trying to have fun, and she's still pretty young. They continue talking about how Han Chol's DNA should not be passed on and just a bunch of other shit. I ain't reading all that. Somebody else says that he was in the same class as her, and it low-key makes him sick. Minute is on his way to school. We see some kids trying to break a window. There's something else happening as well. Pretty much everybody's just doing their own thing. And it's back to the comments of people yapping, asking if they really think that psychopaths are spreading their DNA, and just a bunch of other stuff. Minute rings the doorbell, and Ji Hyun's mother opens it. She says it's been a while since he's come by, and she's sorry that their home's dirty. He says it's fine, asking how Ji Hyun is. It turns out that the comments we're seeing are all things that she's reading while she's crying, sitting on the floor. She asks Min if he hit his face properly, and he asks what she means. She says that if he was filmed coming here, it's going to be another big issue, and that he's a hooligan, or they're living together, or some other outlandish lies. That they know nothing, yet they keep acting like they do. And it's 100% they're doing. They saw her, kept chasing after her, and followed her home as well. She's talking about Minsu's group. Minute tells her to calm down. Minute says he gets how she feels, but she should calm down. She should know there's no need to react to everything that people say online, and they'll just disappear on their own. They don't have anything to cause drama over. She says she knows, and she truly does, but there's something she feels even more betrayed by, and it's the fact that everybody looks down on her because of her father, and that she'll never grow normally, and she really thinks that she's cursed because of this. And as soon as she feels like she's living well and healthy, they'll start hounding on her once more, asking why she can live the way she does. She doesn't even know what she was working for anymore, or what she was trying to prove. She was forcibly smiling and acting bright, but she has no idea what purpose it was for. Minute is just surprised. Her mother comes in, calling him aside, telling him to come over for a second. As people are throwing rocks at their windows, she says that she's getting really worried, and that she should be with her during the day, but she works the night shift. Minute says it's okay. It's the entrance exam period, so he doesn't have classes anyways. She thanks him, tells him not to go outside if possible, and to call if something happens. Ji Hyun sees the timer above his head as it's different now, but it's still counting down. She says no and watches it, falling to her knees, telling him not to go down, begging him. He's in her fridge, saying there is nothing useful here, and that even if it's late, he still needs to give her dinner. He looks outside, saying that nobody's here, so it should be fine as well, and he tells her he's gonna head to the market real quick. She just lays there, and he wonders if she's asleep. As soon as he unlocks the door, a dude says there he is. He sees two dudes super happy to see him. They barge in, asking if this is Ji Hyeon's house, and if he is her brother or boyfriend. Chubby says that's the one from the video. Minute wonders how they know her name. They say that they're actually trying to film a three-way interview, and they start asking if she's there. Of course, she's laying on the floor. Minute sees the camera and says that they're trespassing, to leave before he calls the police. They then slowly start to forcefully enter the room, and Min can't even fight against one of the dude's strength as he's blowing smoke straight into his face. Minute wonders what to do, telling the dude to take his hand off the door. The guy says that he recognizes his uniform as the Song Kyung-hae uniform, and it's been more than 10 years, but it's still the same, and that his daughter went there, and she was around his age. He says that she was so pretty. He starts to recall the video about how she was around the same age as when Miss S was killed, and he realizes that's who this is. The guy barges in, wondering where she is, and he starts smiling menacingly, walking into the hallway, saying he's so glad that she had a daughter. He's given up on it, but it's finally his turn, as he has a hammer in hand. Minute tells him to wait and to stop, and he gets smacked in the head and falls to the floor, bleeding. Ji Hyun slowly opens the door, and the dude asks why he's getting in his way. As we see the timer going down even more, she is now standing directly behind the dude with a knife in hand, glaring at him. As the timer continues going down, his eyes start to look faint. She says that she can finally see it properly, and once every hour, once every minute, and once every second, that it is his time remaining, and his life is ticking down. She says she finally sees. No matter who it was, these people just needed her as a face for revenge. They needed someone they could curse, and cast out and blame it on her ending up like her father. She says that if that's what they want, she'll give them that. She raises the knife, going to swing it down, and Number appears behind, grabbing onto her hand. As the knife falls to the floor, she turns, surprised, and so is Miss S's father. Number then grabs onto the knife, asking Ji Hyun if that's what she wants to be her final words, and he then slices her, as we see blood flying. If you've watched till the end, comment, Ringo, to let me know. Subscribe for more videos like this, leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.